Well, here we are live. Sorry for the delay, folks. I was deep in the heart of trying to figure out Zoom video, and I think I got the hang of it to work it into my other software. So hopefully, I'll be able to incorporate this on a regular basis. The Joe and Joe Weather Show on this Monday night, 7:07 Eastern Time. Another gloom and doom kind of day. Didn't rain very much today, which was good. I got my 8 mile walk in today.
Really?
Yes, I did. I left early this morning. I left
But it didn't rain. It was like a little drizzly this morning, a little damp and chilly and whatever.
but it
But
was
nothing else.
cold. It was in the upper 30s and low 40s this morning when I went outside.
Wow.
And
I'm
then
sure.
that north wind, which isn't fun. But I actually, the way I walk, I had the wind kind of blows across, so it's all sheltered, being that I have buildings in front of me all the way along. So it really didn't bother me very much. But
8 miles though?
8 miles today, 5 yesterday, 11 on Saturday.
That's like if on a Fitbit, that'd be like 70,000 steps.
No, today's I think was like 16,000 or 17,000 steps. Saturday's was 21,000, and I think yesterday was about 13,000, 12 or 13,000.
And here
Nah,
I am.
not too shabby.
And here I am with all of as of this moment. I put this on when I woke up this morning. 1,507 steps. You can see I didn't do very much in terms of walking or.
Yeah, I've been really trying to get this every day. Otherwise, you might wind up sitting around all day, and given the conditions, it's not good. I think when this is all over with, people are going to find themselves with excess. Most people, not all, will find themselves with excess pounds. I'm
Yes.
I'm trying to stop it at the pass before it gets out of hand.
Right.
So anyway, a couple of things. Looks like we should see some improvement tomorrow. I'm still worried a little bit about some clouds coming down from the Great Lakes. They may wind up going into southern New Jersey, southern Pennsylvania, and shutting the sun off there for a little while. We'll kind
Right.
of be on the edge of that. So, but overall, look, if it doesn't rain, and at least if the sun comes out away from the coast, if whoever gets sun tomorrow should be able to make it above 60. Not much above 60, but it should be able to make it at least a little bit above 60.
I concur. I think right along the sound shore of Westchester, you might fall just a degree or so shy of 60, but most everybody else should be in the low and possibly even the mid 60s. A place like Poughkeepsie, for example, or Kingston might get up to 64, 65 tomorrow afternoon. With again enough sunshine. And I do also concur on your concern about cloud cover because when we get to later tomorrow afternoon, especially, there may be kind of a shelf, if you will, of mid to high level cloudiness trying to reach into the tri state area from the south and west. And whereas, let's say, down toward Philadelphia or South Jersey, it may be more cloudy than sunny tomorrow. The further north and east you go, we should be more and more into the sunshine. And it also holds true for Long Island as well.
Meanwhile, snow amounts from upstate New York, courtesy of Timothy Veltman, who sent me the public information statement out of Binghamton, New York. Binghamton, NWS Binghamton, 9/10 of an inch. In Delaware County, Hobart, or 4.8 miles east southeast of Hobart, 7 inches. Fleisch, 5.7 miles north of Fleischmann's, Margarine,
Mm.
3.8 inches.
Or,
1.5
ye-
in
or
Delhi,
yeast. Or yeast.
or yeast,
Mm.
and half an inch in Walton. Madison County, a mile northwest of Leonardsville, 3 inches, and Otsego County, Cherry Valley, 14 inches. 14 inches. East Springfield, 6.5, Springfield, 6, Richfield Springs, 5, Hartwick, 5.1, and on it goes. And by the way, just in Pennsylvania, just for laughs, 1/10 of a mile northeast of Vandling, okay? 1/10 of a mile northeast of Vandling, 8/10 of an inch. 1 mile west northwest of Vandling, 2/10 of an inch. But we have no weather observations from downtown Vandling. Okay, so just to be clear on this, uh, Heavy wet snow, elevation driven, blah blah blah. And also, one of the folks on the Discord chat, and let me see if I can find it. This was kind of cool, actually. Hang on. I had it up on the screen, and now it disappeared on me. Oh, God. Where is it? Oh, here it is. So, Joe, I don't know if you can see this. I'm going to bring this is from Weatherman G on Facebook. Whoever Weatherman G is. Uh, so if you look at the video here, I got it up to the side as soon as it loads. I've taken you off the screen for a moment.
Okay, yes, I see what you're doing.
Okay. Now we have the heavy wet snow falling with some electrical wire going berserk. What happens when you get heavy wet snow and you wind up with, I'm going to get rid of that now. Heavy wet snow and you wind up with some power lines down. So pretty exciting stuff. Also, and I'll show it later, the remember back when was it? A few months ago, when I guess maybe it went back at the beginning of our winter, where Australia was going into the beginning of their summer,
Right.
and the whole country was on fire. Well, now
Yes.
apparently they're experiencing some of the coldest weather they've ever seen in all of Australia during the month of April. So they've gone to the other extreme with all of this. So
I tell you.
we'll take a look at that a little bit later. If I forget, just remind me.
That's amazing. And in fact, I told you on Friday night, I actually did an interview with a woman in Australia via Skype, and I was like chuckling to myself. I said, "I can't believe I'm doing this," and she's like 10,000 miles away. But
Isn't that something?
it's
Isn't that
amazing.
it really is. It's the world we imagined,
Yes.
and now we're too darn old for it. Uh, so let's take a look at what's happening. At the moment, I pulled up the obs here from centered right over New York City, so you can take a look at eastern Pennsylvania. I have to tell you, these numbers that you're seeing right now aren't that far off from the numbers that I saw this morning. It's a little bit warmer down in southern Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, where it's in the middle and upper 50s, but everybody else still holding, most spots holding in the 40s, some places down in the low 40s, and then running up into upstate New York. Looking at numbers there, upper 30s to around or just over 40. Same goes for interior, central, and northern New England, with temperatures in many areas in Vermont and New Hampshire in the mid and upper 30s. And Maine, which of course it's Maine, and we get that. Some 40s to the east. It's actually warmer up in northeastern Maine, where temperatures are in the middle 40s, than it is in southwestern Maine, where temperatures are generally in the upper 30s. Sorry, the map is going a little crazy right now. I hit the button a little bit too fast.
It's technology.
Yes, but and such is life in the Northeast these days. Across the country, pretty quiet at the moment. There really isn't a whole lot going on. We have a minimal amount of severe weather in parts of southwest Texas, some red flag warnings here and there in parts of California, Nevada, and Arizona, where it's dry and very warm. Also in parts of Nebraska, we've got some frost warnings, frost advisories up for northern New Jersey, and for parts of the lower Hudson Valley in southern Connecticut, and also in western North Carolina. And that is it.
You know, Joe, you just mentioned red flag warning. This is the first April I can remember in quite a few years where we didn't see a single red flag warning go up anywhere in the tri-state area.
Yeah, no red flag warnings. We haven't hit 70 degrees a single time, and that will be the first time in 80 years, since 1940, that we haven't seen a 70-degree high. Now, where I live on Long Island, not getting to 70 degrees in April is very commonplace. Uh, for I would say more years often than not, it doesn't make it to 70, even in uh, western parts of Long Island. But once you get into toward New York City, it becomes a little more unusual. and for not hitting 70, that's pretty impressive. Not Joe, not a. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Here's the irony. I think I know here where I live in Putnam Valley, we did hit 70 in March at least a couple of times, but we didn't do it in April.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. It's just it's great. We've been in that blocky pattern that has kept things pretty chilly. No big storms around. We've got this coastal low. You can see the cloud rotation is starting to pull away slowly to the east. The back edge of the clouds not that far away, but as I was saying, you got this area in the Great Lakes that's moving southeastward, and you already have clouds moving into western PA. I kind of drew a red circle where I think the clouds are going to be for tomorrow, and it's mostly central south, more South Jersey than anything else. Southern Pennsylvania, down into northern Virginia, Maryland. That's where I think these clouds might get in the way. Hopefully, areas north and east of here, east of that, the northern part of that red circle, you wind up with just some patchy clouds and more sun than anything else. Because darn it, I want to see some sun.
It would be nice. And in fact, the models are suggesting that we'll be going into a clearing trend in the after midnight hours tonight. There may still be between now and then maybe a few spotty showers around, but we'll finally begin to dry out some after midnight. There's even a frost warning that has been posted for parts of the Hudson Valley. And I told my wife, I said, for that to happen in here, we have to see that sky clear real quick and see those temperatures plummet real fast.
Yeah, it would help if the wind stay drops off
Yeah,
completely too.
yeah.
Well, not impossible, not impossible. You also could see out to the west, by the way, you're starting to see energy coming in, and of course, we're setting up for the next weather system that's going to be developing in the Great Lakes with its trailing cold front and the severe weather that's going to go along with that. Here's the radar this evening, and still has some leftover precip, Joe, going on in the Hudson Valley, going up 87 and north of I-90, kind of rotating southward. There's actually been a couple of sprinkles passing over parts of Long Island back to about New York City, a little bit of a more solid band in southeastern New England. And I imagine some of this that's up in Vermont and New Hampshire is probably some wet snow. You can also see the showers back through the Great Lakes. Now, this is with that disturbance that I was saying how I was worried about the clouds with this. The showers will probably fall apart, but the clouds will hold together. We also have some showers and a couple of thunderstorms breaking out in parts of northwest Arkansas, southwest Missouri, and also seeing some showers and storms down in southwest Texas, where we have a few counties under severe thunderstorm watches and some varying amounts of precip and rain and some snow, minimal snow shower activity moving across parts of the northern Rockies and the northern plains. Not much severe weather, I think, until we get to later tomorrow night into Wednesday.
And for us, we were discussing this on the Sunday morning show for Wednesday night into Thursday. No, actually, for Thursday night into early Friday. That may be when we'll see our best chance of getting any kind of really significant showery and possibly thundery weather. I was checking out SPC, Joe. They don't have anybody blocked out after day 3 for possible severe weather. But that front on Wednesday night, excuse me, why do I keep saying Wednesday night? Thursday night, late into early Friday,
Right.
looks to be fairly potent and could very well drive maybe even a squall line through here late Thursday night and early Friday.
Yeah,
So
I don't see
watch.
SPC saying anything about that until they get inside their 3-day range. I didn't for whatever reason I'm thinking that they're probably not going to say anything until we get there. Just so my little never to be humble opinion, little old never be humble opinion. Uh, there's your surface map. Your low sitting east of Cape Cod, finally pulling away. There's not a big drive of drier air behind it, and of course you see the other disturbances that are running upstream. So at best, we're talking about getting one dry day out of this. Here's the Storm Prediction Center's severe weather risk for tomorrow. Fairly extensive, Joe, from northeast Texas through Arkansas, southern Missouri. That's enhanced risk. Slight risk running all the way up the Mississippi Valley, north to south. going up to Wisconsin and into northern Iowa. So we have a fairly large area of severe weather risk for Tuesday. Most of this is going to be Tuesday night into Wednesday as this low develops and heads for the Great Lakes and the trailing cold front that's going to run from there south toward Texas.
Right, and we stay out of any kind of projected or predicted convective activity here through the 3 day interval of SPC. But again, you're right. Predictability is probably too low for them to stick their neck far enough out to issue anything for our part of the country for Thursday. But you're right. I think when we get to tomorrow's outlook, we're going to be somewhere in the potential thunderstorm risk zone. And tomorrow, yeah, that while we may not get any precipitation, the debris clouds, as they're sometimes referred to, may get into parts of our area during the afternoon tomorrow. Again, hiding the sun mainly, again, to the west and south of the immediate tri state area, whereas the further north and east you go, the better your odds of holding on to some bright sunshine through much of the day tomorrow.
Oddly enough, with this risk area for tomorrow, the categorical risk where the enhanced is not where the maximum tornado risk is. The tornado risk is actually higher. uh, a small area of the enhanced risk is in that 5%, but much of the slight risk running up toward northern Illinois and southeastern Iowa, the risk for tornadoes is actually higher up north with a 2% risk of tornadoes covering the whole area. So much of the enhanced risk area is not in the maximum risk for tornadoes. Usually they kind of run hand in hand, but this time
Right.
around it's a little bit different. The wind issue is a big deal. So they're worried more about severe thunderstorms with destructive winds, with the 30% chance there being indicated. That matches up much better with the enhanced risk. And as you said, Joe, you look into Wednesday. This is Wednesday into early Thursday. There's a marginal risk across the Gulf states and the southeast, but not much else. And yeah, day 4 through 8. On day 4, they're saying predictability for day 4, which would take you into Friday morning, as being too low. So they're not saying that there can't be severe weather. They just don't have enough confidence at this stage of the game to put a forecast out. And I think that sort of makes sense. They might as well wait till it comes into their forecast range. So they might give us a few clues on this for tomorrow, starting tomorrow.
I think tomorrow, if they do, and they probably will for Thursday, they'll probably put us in at least the area of general thunderstorm coverage, and then it will be the game of watching as we get closer to the event of how much of that is going to become marginal and how much of it is eventually going to become slight. Uh, Again, it looks like a pretty formidable zone of possible convection here for late Thursday night into perhaps early on Friday. So we'll keep an eye on it for everybody.
So I've got the European up today, the upper air, and of course you can see starting with this morning with this upper low in over Lake Huron and the trough that goes with it that extends southeastward to the coast. Oddly enough, Joe, and I guess this probably has to do with the fact that the upper low is much further north than it wound up being. That The rainfall amounts that were being modeled wound up falling, being far less. A lot of the models were showing us getting maybe an inch to an inch and a half of rain from Sunday into this morning, and most areas got less than half that. So this was one of those instances, much less than half that. Some places didn't even get a third of that. So
Right.
this is one of those cases. Recently, we've had a lot of cases that have lived up to potential or outperformed the models. This was one instance where that did not happen. And of course, now this pulls out. Here comes your next trough, which is fairly sharp and just kind of marches along to the east. So you're going to get a low that's going to try to go up to the lakes and then just essentially translate its way eastward. I'm thinking that this weekend, with a little bit of luck, it's going to take some luck because we do have another weather system that's coming down from Canada. Here we are Saturday morning with a trough offshore. You could already see there's an upper low near Lake Winnipeg Saturday morning. And, there's no rest for the weary. That's going to probably bring another cold front through here Sunday night into Sunday night. So maybe Saturday and Sunday we could squeeze out it being dry for much of the time, and maybe on Sunday we could push temperatures up into the 70s before the next front goes by.
I've got 70 on my lower Hudson Valley forecast for Sunday. I'm not quite sure about Saturday. My Saturday outlook, actually, I said more clouds than sun. And then I put with a big question mark, I said maybe a shower. Maybe something might be squeezed out of the atmosphere on Saturday. I know that the National Weather Service, I didn't get a chance to look at their forecast this afternoon, but I know through the weekend they've been going for mostly sunny for Saturday. But I don't know, Joe. Maybe I'm being a little pessimistic here, but I think Saturday we might actually see more clouds than a lot of people would like to see. I think the better of the two weekend days would be Sunday, more sunshine, and as you just alluded to, maybe even getting to 70, something we were not able to do all of April, but it looks like we're going to be heading in that general direction for the end of the upcoming weekend, and that'll feel really nice.
Well, we got on the European anyway. Traffic still in the east. Now I'm looking at now in the long range going into next Sunday and Monday, of course, with the troughing in the east and yet another weather system swinging around for the latter part of next week. There's the GFS actually has the same idea here. So even though we might catch a bit of a break this weekend, maybe squeeze in two dry daytime periods, once we get into early next week, it looks like the atmosphere is still going to be busy trying to take lows out underneath us and keeping troughing in the eastern part of the United States. This is not a warm look to the upper air. When I look at it days 11 through 15, uh, you know, this is still a pretty chilly pattern that's trying to hold on through much of the eastern half of the United States. I think, Joe, this is going to be one of those years, and it actually usually happens more often than not when you're stuck in a pattern like this where it's colder than average and it doesn't want to give way and you're approaching summer. I mean, eventually what's going to happen is the switch is just going to get flipped and
Yes,
you're going to suddenly find yourself with 90-degree temperatures. Uh,
you, you and my wife, who by the way is also a meteorologist, you and my wife are in total agreement. We were eating dinner this evening, and she was talking about that very subject. It's going to be cold. It's going to be cold. And then you watch. All of a sudden, it's going to get to 90 or 95
you know,
degrees, and
just
that usually tends to be the case. A lot of people say, "When is the warm weather? When are we going to get nice and warm? When is summer coming?" All of a sudden, bang! It's here. And guess what? When it's here, it ain't going away very fast. So we'll
um, yes, no, I really believe that's just what's going to happen. We're just going to basically just flip a switch. But here let's backtrack to the next weather system because this is actually, Joe, when you look at Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, the models are really developing a pretty hefty looking squall line from western Indiana all the way down into northeast Texas. So that plays into SPC's risk area. It's not doing very much during the day on Wednesday, but it does fire up some storms in from West Virginia down into northern Georgia. I just wonder whether as they might wind up. I'm looking at this and looking at the kind of trough that's moving eastward. I'm wondering whether they're going to have to do a little expanding of their severe weather risk for later Wednesday and Wednesday night. Here in the Northeast, it's still pretty quiet. I think the GFS has this warm front that sets up on Wednesday. I don't necessarily buy these showers that they're indicating. The GFS was terrible this weekend with this weather system, just way overdeveloped on the radar, way too far along. Had too much along the coast. Everything wound up being well inland, and I think it's doing it again here. So we'll have to wait for probably later Thursday night, as you said, with this front whipping through. It does have an impressive looking squall line setting up. And this might be an instance, by the way, this is where the gradient on Thursday is pretty tight with the south wind. So I don't see this as a traditional severe weather. This is not going to be like what we just. I don't think it's going to be like what we had back last week. I think this
Right.
this is a whole this I think is a different setup, because we're going to have really strong south winds ahead of this. So yeah, there'll be some thunderstorms with the front. I just don't know whether they'll be they'll be severe or not.
Well, if they do turn severe, and if we do have a rather tight gradient with a strong southerly wind, then we may have the more traditional situation where the line of showers and storms will reach to New York, and then once it arrives in the vicinity of coastal Connecticut and Long Island, those winds will do their job and knock the ferocity of those potential severe storms down, and that's unlike what we had what it was about a week ago, where those severe storms made it all the way across Long Island. But again, that last week that front was moving just too fast, 50 and 60 miles an hour. Those storms didn't have a chance.
Yeah,
With
this would be where
triple up.
this would be where the marine layer takes hold for Long Island and southern New England
Right. If it
with the
happens
south
at night
wind.
too, that's another key. This is a nighttime event that too will play into weakening those storms.
Right, and then of course you got, once it pulls out, still maybe a leftover shower on Friday. It looks like it wants to be dry on Saturday. There are some showers with a warm front running across the western lakes that extend down into western New York. By Saturday evening, the GFS once again trying to show, has a sprinkling of showers up all around us. But again, I wonder whether that's just overdone because the model's been so guilty of it. Let's see what it does tomorrow. And then we will set up with a west wind on Sunday. So that hopefully should warm things up enough. Although even here, it's got another cold front coming through with some showers and storms. I just don't think it has everything lined up the way it should. And there's your coastal low for later next week, in which we'll work on when we get there. There's another cold high building across eastern Canada. Honestly, I really want this to go away. I just don't want go away.
Yeah.
Enough. I've had enough.
I think a lot of us have had enough. This is not fair. You trade 2 decent days for 5 or 6 not so decent days. I don't like
Yes.
those. I don't like that.
So I got Australia up here. I'm just trying to see. There's some weather systems that are running. I really don't have a good grasp on how things work in Australia weather-wise. We don't really look at the southern hemisphere very often. There is just from the standpoint of the time. I'm looking out at 300 hours. I got to make this a little smaller so that it'll just show up on the whole screen. Um, there you go. So I'm going to bring the temperature anomalies up. Oh, there's some snow at the end of the period. They have the same problem with their 384-hour maps where they, showing snow, a small area in southeastern Australia. But let's just bring I'm going to bring up the anomalies here.
Right. The
Uh,
southeast, of course, that's where the biggest city in Australia is Melbourne. I know a lot of people look at that name and they say Melbourne, but if you're an Australian, it's Melbourne. And also in that same area southeast, it's New South Wales. I think that's where Sydney is as well.
yeah. Oh, look at this. This is really cool. If you look on the anomaly map, so starting here we are. What's today? The 27th. Okay. So watch this. Look on the lower left. You can actually see this cold Antarctic air moving northward into the south coast and then overspreading all of Australia for much of the forecast period. That is actually quite interesting how it does
Wow.
that. Look at that.
Wow.
So here we are going to bring it in. That's pretty cool. We're so used to everything coming down from the north. It's kind of like I guess this would be the equivalent of when you go to England and you try to drive on the opposite side. Your brain is not quite there. And I'm
we're
just gonna
so we're so accustomed to everything coming down from the north and the warm air coming up from the south. But if you live down under, it's
yeah.
just the opposite.
And there's two Antarctic air masses. So the first one is coming starting tomorrow in the southwestern part of Australia, and then overspreads the entire continent. Then, as that moderates, here comes the next one. In the longer range, around day 10, it starts to come in on the lower left and sweeps northward and takes over all of Australia. This is so cool. It just is. I'm getting I'm enjoying this because it's not something that we look at very often. So this was on Twitter. Let's see. This was from Electroverse. Electroverse. Electroverse net. One word. So if you're on Discord, the Twitter link is there, so you can take a look at that. He hashtagged it Grand Solar Minimum, and he also hashtagged it Grow Your Own. So if you want to go take a look at this on Twitter, those were the two hashtags. So let me bring you back up full screen, Mr. Rayo. Hang on one second here. I'm gonna do a little maneuvering with all this technical stuff I gotta do. Hang on a second. Let me get this on this page. And I forgot to tell you. Guess what?
Okay.
So
Yes.
remember yesterday when I told you that I have made the pinnacle of social media by being
Oh,
blackmailed?
he came back. He came back
Oh
again.
no, I got another one. I got blackmailed by somebody else, but this time he cut the price down. Instead of wanting 1 Bitcoin, he only wanted a third of a Bitcoin, which would be about $2,000.
Okay.
And I gave him the same answer. People are paying 3 Bitcoins to look at my pornography. Why should I? So you're gonna actually have to pay me. For those of you who aren't into this, I got my first black. A few people have been getting that I know of have gotten these, but I got one of those a blackmailer saying that unless they had a camera installed with malware into my computer, and they had me doing let's call them fascinating things with pornography,
Lovely.
and they were going to release the video to the entire world to see. Okay. And if I didn't believe them, they were just going to handpick a few family members or friends of mine that they were going to send the stuff to. So I gave them the same answer both times. I said, "Why should I pay you money when they're paying me 3 times as much to look at the same video?" So there. And for those of you who don't get my joke, it's a joke. Okay, there's really there is no real video out there, at least not that I know of. So. Anyway, let's do a little Briller Jeopardy on this Monday, the 27th. Oh, by the way, I don't know if my buddy Phil is watching, but today's his wife's Veronica's birthday, so just want to wish her a happy birthday. Okay, so uh, since 1869, what was the highest and low? Well, we already know the answer to the real answer to this. The highest and lowest temperatures ever recorded in the month of May.
The highest and lowest temperature. I don't think we've ever. Well, we already had the story about how one day in May it went to like 101, but the National Weather Service refused to
Right,
acknowledge that.
right. Well, the forecaster forced it on the
So
observer.
I think the high was like 99.
99. That was on May 19th, 1962.
Right.
See, now that matches up with the time frame with Tom Morgan. Okay, who told me
Right.
that story. Okay,
And
and the lowest.
my right eye is very itchy. I don't know why, but And the lowest temperature,
Mm-hmm.
I would I would venture to say that at least once in the month of May we've gone below freezing. So I will say 30,
Two.
32.
May
So we have
May.
gone to freezing.
Right. 32. May 6th, 1891.
Wow, that's
Yes.
that's all right. But again, it doesn't happen too often. And I would have thought that at least once in the early part of the month, we might even have gone briefly below freezing. But yeah, 32. That sounds right, just about right.
That it does.
And I noticed that Scott Briller mentioned that he's going to have a milestone birthday on May the 10th.
And what milestone might that be?
It's going to be the big 6-0 for Mr. Briller.
Well, you and I have both passed that plateau.
Yes, yes. I have a question for Scott, though, if he wants to put it on the chat board. Scott, do you remember back in 1994 on your birthday, there was a major solar eclipse? And in fact, Mr. Chiappi and I were covering it for News 12 Long Island at West End number 4, at not West End, at Field 4.
Oh, that's right. Yes, we did do that. I have a faint memory of that. Yes.
Bill Corbell was there with his telescope, and a bunch of other people were out there. That was May 10th. That was Scott Briller's birthday. So I'm wondering whether or not Scott may remember that. I think something like 90% of the sun was covered by the moon that day. Had a fake counterfeit twilight fall over us for a couple of minutes. The seagulls were going kind of crazy. Maybe it was coming on nighttime and it was feeding time or whatever. So
Tell everybody about the whole thing with Tesla and the satellites again.
well, tomorrow night, it's going to happen at approximately 8:45. If you look over toward the southern, about one third up from the horizon in the southern sky. But you see, the interesting thing, Joe, where I get these predictions, they take into account the short term thing in terms of the altitude of these satellites.
Right.
When they're initially launched, they're 250 miles above the surface of the Earth, but eventually they're going to be pushed up to about 500 or 600 miles. Obviously, the higher up they go, the dimmer they're not going to reflect as much light as if they were closer to us. So yesterday and back over the weekend, it looked like we are going to have a nice bright string of moving stars moving across the sky. But the latest information shows that these satellites will still look like they'll pass over our area at about, again, 8:45 tomorrow evening in the southern sky, about a third of the way up on the horizon. But they look like they're going to be much dimmer. If you live in an area with a lot of light pollution, you may not be able to see these quite easily because they'll look like a string of much dimmer, fainter stars. Again, maybe I'll post something on Facebook and add two things. Number one, the dimness of the satellite string or satellite train, and the other, as we've been talking about since the start, is the uncertainty about the weather. Some of you
Right.
may have some too many clouds to see this. Others may be out in the clear. It would be interesting. Since it happens at 8:45, we'll have a better handle on this tomorrow night because I think we'll be off the air by 8:45 tomorrow night, right? So
I would think
yeah,
so.
I would think so too.
Dennis Cassia just asked a really important question. And it's odd that you should ask this question, if only because, Dennis, I happen to be watching one of my DVR episodes on Saturday, and I did actually make a point to try and read the names of the three books that are in the closing credits.
Oh, really?
Okay, and you know what? They were in Latin. I did read them. I didn't write it down. These days, my memory is such where, I can't even remember what day of the, I don't even remember what we're doing now. So it just fades in and out. So I'm gonna have to take a closer look at that. But just funny that he should mention it because I did actually look when it came up on the screen. I was starting to read the Latin on it, but I just don't remember e pluribus unum something or another. I don't
It's
know.
funny because I did something similar, not with Perry Mason, but with the movie It's a Wonderful Life. At the end of the movie, you see this gigantic bell that's ringing. This is right after they all sing Auld Lang Syne or whatever. And there's some inscription on the bell, and it makes it hard when it's moving to try to see
Trying to say it.
what's on it. So you have to stop it. And unfortunately, the various times I've stopped it, it still looks kind of shaky. But one of these days I'll figure it out, or maybe somebody else out
By
there
the way,
knows.
with what you were saying with the satellites, Timothy Veltman says because he's up in Albany, will he be able to see them up there?
Yeah, well, it'll be lower. The further north you go, the lower in the sky they'll be, and the further south you go, the higher. Because the satellite train, if you were to look at this as they circle the Earth, the satellite train will be passing over, I think, Virginia, Delaware, Maryland. So again, the further north and north and east you go, the lower down in the sky. Now, of course, and Dennis knows what I'm talking about. He calls this Spode's law or Murphy's law. Tonight, the satellites, if it were clear, if it were nice and clear, they'd be going almost directly overhead, and they
Which
would
we
be
know it's
quiet.
not. So unless we want to wait up till 2 o'clock in the morning,
Right.
if it clears out,
Yeah.
but then it
No,
would be too late, right?
it'll be too late. They won't be able to. You won't be able to see them because they'll probably be on the other side of the Earth by that time. So
Donald Levasseur pointing out the Thunderbirds and the Blue Angels are going to be flying between 11 and 2 tomorrow, and that's they're going to be flying over hospitals in New Jersey, in New York, Long Island, and New Jersey, in tribute to the medical personnel who continue to just do a phenomenal job keeping trying to make the sick people better again with this horrible virus that's going around.
It's between 12 and 12:40, I think, and the flight path. I put the flight path up on my um, Facebook pages, and I know Dennis. I got it from Dennis because Dennis put it on his Facebook page as well. People who are saying that they're not going to go over, for example, Eastern Long Island or the Central or South Jersey Shore area. However, I did check up on this. The Blue Angels, depending upon the local weather conditions, they could vary anywhere from 5,000 to 15,000 feet, which means that if they go up as high as 10 or 15,000 feet, even though you might not be in the direct flight path, that you might be able to still see them if you're
Mm.
looking in the right direction when they come by.
All right, so let's see what happens now. Hopefully, the weather will cooperate. And
See, I just got a late breaking bulletin, but she doesn't realize that that we already answered this question that Dennis
what is the
asked.
name of the three?
This is how I get my bulletins. She passes these notes along to me. One of these days she's going to pass a note to me saying,
You
radar
need
shows tornado.
you need the typewriter doing the old 1010 wins thing.
Right, with the old
Exactly, the old teletype. All right, so look, let's call it a night. Same time tomorrow, 7 o'clock Eastern time on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Thanks everybody for being here. Thanks to the chairman for the Jeopardy question today. And that's. Oh, I just want to mention again, just real quick. I was one of the reasons why I was working on that Zoom video at the beginning is because on the 12th of May, which is a Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, we're going to be doing a virtual library presentation with the Westwood Library in Westwood, New Jersey. So that'll be at 7 o'clock. So that'll be right at showtime. So we will have the library stuff going on, and we'll have you folks on the chat board. So it'll be one. I haven't even figured out how we're going to do this. So uh, we'll figure it out somehow. All right. So I just
Zoom.
wanted to give everybody just a heads up. So write it down on your calendar, Tuesday, May 12th at 7 o'clock. All right. So everybody have a great evening, and we'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
Yes, sir. Good night.